Perfect. Well, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Steve, so much for coming in with us. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and thank you on behalf of this whole community for accepting the invite. It's very exciting to have you here. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and start the presentation.
Sure. Yeah, Monica, thanks for having me. You know, exciting to be a part of the newsletter and reach out to a lot of different people and talk a little bit about some of the things that we see in the industry and tell you guys a little bit about Sensor Networks and what we're doing as a company to work smarter versus harder in this new world that we're in. So, my name is Steve Strachan. I'm VP of Sales for Sensor Networks, based out of Houston, Texas. Sensor Networks, just to give you guys a little background, Sensor Networks is a technology company, and we started Sensor Networks back in 2014, and our headquarters is in State College, Pennsylvania. And we have about 100 people now that work for the company. And what we really focus on doing, we started the company really as a technology company that oversees how to deploy technology for non-destructive testing, whether it's in oil and gas, aviation, power generation. We make ultrasonic solutions for enabling better, more accurate, smarter, safer technology for looking at cracks or corrosion or voids, in a non-destructive way, to keep assets in the field operating, safely for not just today, but in weeks, months, and years to come. So, a little bit of background on us, some of our customers that we serve across those three different verticals. I'm going to walk through just very briefly. We have three different product lines in the business, as I mentioned before. One is what we call installed sensors, and in the world today, whether you're in a refinery or a petrochemical plant or you're doing asset integrity at a wellhead, people are walking out, driving out, physically going to assets and taking manual measurements for thickness, for corrosion measurement purposes, to say, is the pipe or tank or vessel or asset thick enough to continue to operate? And we said when we started the company that there was probably a future state that folks could work a little bit smarter, and instead of manually going to assets to take readings, you could install a sensor, which was battery operated, and it would wake up and take a reading once a day, once a week, once a month, however often, and it would keep people from having to physically go to measure things on a component level. So that's really where we started the company, and we have designed these wireless ultrasonic sensors that you can install on operational equipment and assets and take thickness readings, and then wirelessly send that data to a back end where a person can be sitting in front of their computer or their phone or what have you, and be able to look at that data real time. So that's really one of the product lines. And then as we got further into it, there was a lot of folks that we have a lot of ultrasonic expertise in the company. So we started making transducers, phased array probes for different applications, for crack monitoring or for just different types of phased array and non-destructive testing applications. And then we bolted on a third part of the business, again, from kind of this remote monitoring standpoint. We have these different inspection cameras that do, unmanned entry for tanks, vessels, and things like that. So you can actually do an inspection of a vessel without having to send a person inside. So that's really a little bit about Sensor Networks. It's about what we do. I can walk through a handful of different slides, like I said, across aerospace, power generation, oil and gas. We play with a lot of the different majors doing different types of non-destructive testing. a lot of these transducers that we make, we make hundreds of different styles of transducers, whether they're conventional, everyday small little transducers, all the way up to, we've done some projects with NASA, looking at, backscatter signatures and, all kinds of crazy things with, multi-element from 2 all the way up to, 600 elements in a phased array transducer for doing different applications. So one of the things we've been doing lately is working on high temperature transducers, high temperature products which are able to inspect components while they're online. Anytime that you can keep something online and not have to take it offline, you're increasing uptime, productivity, and the like. So we've been working on different high temperature solutions for mainly the oil and gas world. Right now they don't want to go down because they're making money, so we're trying to help them do that. And just some other examples of different phased array probes that we've done for power generation, dissimilar metal type of applications in nuclear, in the nuclear world, or putting probes into a borescope port to do an inspection of a blade that's on a turbine or that's on an aircraft engine, things like that. And then the installed sensor side of the business is really, again, where we kind of got the idea to start Sensor Networks a number of years ago, which was kind of this idea where in a future state, you don't need to send people into the field to get thickness or corrosion data. So it was kind of this industrial Internet of Things concept where you use sensor technology and big data to make decisions about predictive based maintenance. And so just a little example of, there's some pictures on the bottom of some of these sensor systems, whether they're wireless sensors that are based out in plants, and they wake up once a day and take a thickness reading. So you can start to graph thickness, in this case, thickness on the Y versus time on the X. And you can see over different periods of time, corrosion or erosion is in a lot of cases a non-linear event, and it's more episodic in nature. So you can start to see during different intervals, during different processes, if I'm using a certain crude slate at a certain pressure at a certain temperature, I have a different resulting corrosion rate. So folks can look at this data and start saying, hey, when I'm acting, when I'm doing this or this is what's happening to the wall thickness of my asset. And if I operate a little bit more like I do here, than I can here, will I be able to extend the life of my product? So that's just a high level, a little bit more about the sensor technology that we have. So we have wired systems, we have multi-point, single point systems, we have systems that can be buried for pipelines, super high temperature, super low temperature, single point, multi-point, area monitoring. It's where there's a whole host of different hardware, software solutions for folks that are trying to do, more of this corrosion management and monitoring. Here's 2 of the sensors, just to give you a little background, what they look like. These sensors get clamped onto pipes or magnetically attached to vessels and tanks, and they take thickness readings. Once a day, once a week, once a month, what have you. The sensors can last for up to 15 years on one reading per day. So they have a lot of longevity nowadays to stay in the field for a long time. And so so that's a little bit about the other product line. And then, as I mentioned, the remote visual tanks and vessels and things. Here's just some pictures of what these tanks, these cameras look like. We have retrieval tools for if you drop a bolt or a nut or a hard hat into a turbine, then you have to retrieve it before you fire it up. These tools will help you obviously do it. So we got a whole myriad of different things that we do at Sensor Networks. So now you have a little background of the company. I know Monica, you got a couple questions for me, so I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you so much. That looks so amazing. And I have worked with your products in the past. I know for sure that it's a really good tool for anyone in corrosion or integrity management to take decisions in a short notice. You don't have to do a lot of preparation. You can just take the reports, take the graphs, and then go to a meeting and then present data. So in my experience, that's one of the highlights of the products. Perfect. So the first question I have here is, what do you think is the differentiation factor from your products to any other sensor that are out there in the market?
So we're very niche in our, in what we do with our sensors. Our sensors are very simply, there to take an ultrasonic measurement of how thick an asset is. It also takes a temperature reading as well, so you can do thickness as well as temperature for temperature adjusted thickness readings. But it's very much a a very focused sensor for non-destructive testing, for instead of sending people into a refinery or having them climb up a ladder to take a reading, or do rope access to reach a place, or have to build scaffolding to go collect that data on a certain interval to get a snapshot in time. You install these sensors so that you can get access to more and better data to understand more about my process conditions, so that instead of having to take a pipe or tank or an asset out every 5 to 7 years, if we have access to more and better data, can we leave it in for 7 to 9 to 10 plus years? Can we increase the life of that component so that we get the very most out of these these assets as possible before taking them out of the field? And you just can't really do that with manual methods today, because it's you don't have the quality of the data. You just don't have access to as much quantity or quality of data when you do things in a manual way. So that's really where the sensors come in to really help shine the light on asset integrity from a completely different way of doing things. Today there's a lot of inspection that's going on in the world, which is really a snapshot in time of how that asset's doing. And in order to get more information on that asset, you have to send somebody back out again to get another, another snapshot in time. What these sensors really do is help you to understand in a more holistic level what is the health of an asset over time. And that's really how folks are using the hardware, and then also the resulting data.
Excellent, thank you. So you have been in the industry for a long time, and so now I'm gonna pick your brain on that side, though.
You have a lot of wrinkles and scars on my face to prove it.
Right? If you were to describe in one sentence the most common pitfall in the integrity and the corrosion programs, what would you say?
One sentence is all I get, huh?
Well, no, you can expand. That's okay.
I think the world is changing. And as I said before, I think there's a lot of money in the past that has been spent on, and budgets that have been spent on inspection. And I think you have to adapt to new times and new things and new ways of thinking, because there's less workers in the field. There's more safety, events. Everybody wants to be safer all the time. And so I think folks are starting to learn that inspection isn't the only tool that they have to get better data. And I think folks are now looking at all this money and time and budgets every year that they put into inspection, and they're saying, once I find a place that I know has an issue, how can I monitor it without having to send people into the field to go do that? So folks are looking at this inspection to monitor, inspect to monitor kind of strategy. And not every place needs to be monitored after it's been inspected, but the places that they do find that have interesting inspection reports are perfect places to monitor and see if you can make changes to either remediate or to know more about the health of the asset, of when you need to make make a do a turnaround, or use a different alloy pipe instead of carbon steel, or make more informed decisions using more of a monitoring approach as opposed to an inspection approach. So I think times are changing. I think, before we hit the record button, Monica, you and I talked a little bit about some of the trends that the different asset owners are facing about not only hiring quality people, but getting them to stay. And all of these different folks, are running very, very lean in a lot of cases, and need more help and more data to make better decisions. And I think that's really where Sensor Networks is trying to go. That's why I know where Infinity Growth is trying to go, to really just help these folks, do things, work smarter versus working harder in an environment that is always getting a little bit more challenging and more demanding. That was a really long one sentence answer, but
that was really good. It sums in a nutshell exactly what is going on. So that's really good. Thank you. So you said you have worked in many different some projects, like from all of the projects that you have done. What is the one that you say, oh, this was super cool, super awesome. I really liked it. Like when you said NASA, I was like, wow, NASA. But I don't know, perhaps you have something more interesting. I don't know. What is the one thing that you said that you recall and you're like, this is awesome. This is real neat. You really need to hear about that.
we got a bunch of them. I'm not going to specify names and things, but we did projects where there was a fatality on an airline, and within hours, the airline and the engine manufacturer and the FAA were all sitting in a conference room at Sensor Networks saying, hey, how are we going to inspect these engines to make sure that this problem doesn't happen again? Because we got a fleet of a couple hundred engines that are on wings of aircrafts right this very moment, which are in the air taking people around, that probably all need to be inspected to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So, really, you see these things happen in the industry where very quickly, you need to solve a problem, and it takes a whole consortium of people in order to do that. So, that was a situation where, like I said, within hours, there was everybody, all hands on deck. We needed to come up with a solution, and within probably 2 weeks, we were able to pinpoint where the failure mode was on the blade of the engine. We figured out how to inspect it using a custom made transducer to look at the area of the blade that failed, and we made over 300 kits to inspect all of the engines that were in the air, because if they didn't do them within a couple of weeks, they were going to ground all the airplanes. So it was a situation where you had to find a solution, manufacture a product, and get everything inspected within a certain very, very short amount of time. And thankfully, everything got done. And ever since that issue, that fatality, there has never been another related incident because of the way that the solution was made and the inspection was taken out and done in the field. So, that's just kind of some of the things that we do working with different partners and solution providers in the industry. I can think of another example in a refinery where there was a leak and the asset owner had no idea why, but it had been a bad actor location for a really long time. And they said, hey, we're going to go replace this pipe, and we want to put some sensors all around it to understand from a baseline. We have a brand new pipe with whatever process conditions. We want to understand how fast we're corroding. And what they were doing was sending a person out into the field every month to take manual inspection readings, and their corrosion rate was anywhere from 20 mils per year to 400 mils per year, and they had no idea when it was 400 and when it was 20. So by putting these sensors on, they actually were able to hone the process to understand when they were corroding, how they were corroding, why they were corroding. And that pipe that they would take out every 2 years, or it would run to failure, they were able to extend the life of it to 5 years. And now they're working on how to extend it to 7. So, it's just another example of, folks that are using technology to their advantage and taking this inspection data and really how do we expand upon it to make it even better and save time, money, and safety by leveraging technology. So, that's kind of an aviation, example. That was an oil and gas example that I gave you. But in all of the examples, I think the moral of the story is it takes individuals who want to challenge the status quo and want to really leverage new technology and think outside the box. And that can be young folks, it can be, more mature folks, we work with everybody across the gambit, but it's really people that want to take things to the next level and take the time to try things. You're not every time it's a win, right? It's a lot of times you have to fail before you are successful, and people with that attitude that aren't afraid to try things and challenge the status quo, and those are the folks and the people that not just in the business but in life, I think are the most successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I share that thought. Excellent. Now, let me ask you, where do you see this industry going in some years, like in 10 years, in 5 years? How do you see the industry of the sensors and the remote sensors? Where do you see it going?
Well, specifically for oil and gas, which is where most of the sensors are deployed, I see, oil and gas is going to continue to be have a lot of pressure on productivity, efficiency, taking away downtime, as more renewable energy, comes onto the grid and starts to maybe displace some of the oil and gas. It's going to force oil and gas to work smarter, in a lot of cases than they have before. And I think, what I was talking about before is, using technology to get better access to data instead of this run to failure or, hey, I have a problem, I'm going to just throw money at it until the problem goes away mentality. It's not sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable. So I think folks that are proactive and really, there's a lot of talk of digitization and industry 4.0 and all these buzzwords that come out of one side of folks' mouths, but I think the folks that are actually doing it and investing in looking at doing things differently are the folks that are going to come out on top. And it's every dollar of investment is precious anymore, and I think folks that not only are investing in new technology and new ways of thinking, but folks that aren't afraid to fail, that aren't afraid to try new things, are going to be the ones that really are the winners in this future state. So we've sold incrementally more sensors every single year, exponentially more sensors every single year since we've come out with new technology. And folks are seeing the benefit of this data, and they're figuring out, where can I do more of it, and they're pushing the envelope and pushing us to come out with new solutions, new technology, that make everybody better. So I think my message to everybody would be, challenge the status quo, think outside the box, don't be afraid to fail. That's what makes everybody better. And in this environment, it's going to take everybody to get there.
Absolutely. Excellent. You mentioned two of the two of the words that I like the most: managing and sustainable. Excellent.
Yep.
Perfect. So you've said you guys work in different areas, different sectors. Oil and gas may be in like the primary sector that you guys work with, but you also mentioned aviation. And like, what is that one sector that still does not use the sensors that will perhaps benefit on using it? Or where do you see that application perhaps going into something? I don't know, maybe, pharmaceutical or any industry that you guys are not touching right now that will benefit from this?
We're looking at making some, so our technology operates off of 900 megahertz LoRaWAN backbone of wireless infrastructure, which is becoming a industry standard 900 megahertz LoRaWAN for not just oil and gas, aviation, petrochemical, power gen. 900 megahertz LoRaWAN is used at places like theme parks, like Disney World, and in very, in parking lots for using motion detection or different types of ways to in some cases, there's if you look at LoRaWAN, the LoRaWAN Alliance, there's thousands of different types of sensors that do thousands of different things that are outside of the industrial world. But I think these things are finding their way into the industrial world. So we're working at things like just simple temperature sensors, or things that are more applicable for maybe like thermal imaging kind of stuff, or things that can reduce the number of manpower that's having to go into into an industrial setting every day. So I think that's where the world's going, and I think the industry always lags a little bit further behind than every day. I mean, you think about cell phones, right? I mean, everybody has an iPhone or a smartphone at this point, right? And so folks, it takes a lot longer to go from the commercial or from the everyday private sector to the industry sector. So I see a 5 to 10 year lag on the new folks that are coming in to these refineries are going, how do we get access to more and better data? We can get everything on our phone. Why can't we do that here? So there's still a lag that's happening, but I think very, very soon, the industry will start to pick up to where, the public sector is.
That's fantastic. I think I'm done with my questions. Do you have any closing remarks? Do you want anything to share, anything like in general with the audience?
Yeah, no, I think what you're doing, Monica, is really great, and I think bringing different minds in to talk through what they're seeing, and like I said, what the trends are in the industry, where small companies like Sensor Networks, where we play, and kind of shining a light on what we are seeing with a lot of our different customers who at the end of the day are doing a lot of the same things. And so if you can share best practices, whether it's technology, whether it's, different services that are, as we like to say, all boats rise, with high tide, right? So if you can share ideas, network, work with one another, I think everybody's better off at the end. So I thank you for having me. Look forward to to the future here, and if there's another opportunity to do something like this again, I'd be happy to.
Thank you very much. You have always been so supportive, and this is just a space for everyone. Like what we are thinking is that we can come together, share ideas, and then become better as an industry, as professionals, and as person. So it is really good. Thank you so much, and I'll hope to talk to you soon.
Very good. Thank you again. Good luck.
Thanks.